Most people fail to change because they treat their life like a to-do list. They try to hustle their way into a new reality without changing the person doing the work. Dan Koe argues that if you don't change your identity, your nervous system will literally sabotage you to keep you safe in your current mediocre life. Today, we're breaking down the exact 7 points from his one-day reset to help you rebuild your internal operating system from the ground up. So the first thing that Dan Koe talks about in his article is that you have to think about your identity first and then the outcome second. And basically, the identity you have goes towards the lifestyle you want, which then goes towards the outcome that you want. And so the reason you don't have the life you want to have is because you're naturally the person who wouldn't have it. And so, for example, people often say that I'll be happy once I'm rich, but success isn't actually destination, but a lifestyle. So, for example, if you wanted to write a book, you can't just imagine and ask for the book to happen. You have to be someone who writes 1,000 words a day. You have to be a writer, and so those actions must feel natural to your identity for you to eventually achieve your goal. And a mistake that I used to do was that when I was a bit younger, I used to play quite a lot of games, and I always wanted to sort of improve and get better at my studies, even though I kept on playing those games. And I blame myself, but now it's really easy to see that you can't make progress at all if you don't take the actions of someone who's not good at studying. And so that was obviously quite the important reason why I wasn't really able to improve my studies, and I was stuck playing games for quite a long time. The second point that Dan Koe talks about is that all behavior is goal-oriented. And so basically, he focuses a bit on procrastination here. And he talks about how procrastination is actually a strategy that we ourselves use in our brains. And yeah, you might not expect it, but we aren't actually lazy, but we're actually pursuing a goal, which is often an unconscious one. And the goal is procrastination, which is to avoid judgment or failure. And there's been many times as well where I've unconsciously procrastinated, and actually just because I didn't want to deal with something, or if I made a mistake, I didn't want to deal with embarrassment. And so, for example, a lot of times, maybe in a presentation in class, I'd often hide, and even that is procrastination. It's just procrastination because I was running away from the task without even knowing it, and yeah, I was afraid of failure. However, staying in the same place only maintains your safety and certainty. However, if you stay in the same place, you will actually lose out on a lot of opportunities and things to grow. And so, yeah, even though it might seem like it's safe, and even though it seems like it's an alright thing to do in the moment, it can actually have quite some profound impacts, and it can also limit the sort of growth and potential that you can live up to. The next thing he talks about is sort of the loop where you sort of reinforce your identity. And so your identity is, yeah, like I said before, always constantly running around in a circle. And basically the goal is to sort of stay consistent with whatever your brain thinks your character is. And you only notice the information that fits into your current story. And so, yeah, your results reinforce whatever you believe in. So, yeah, an example that he gives is that if you believe you're bad with money, then you'll ignore investment opportunities and spend impulsively. And then you will say, oh yeah, see, I'm just bad with money. However, you can see there that because you believe in the beginning that you're bad with money, it sort of reinforces yourself to ignore those opportunities, and you will spend more. And therefore, it's a constant cycle where you keep telling yourself that you're just bad with money, even though you can actually improve. And your nervous system actually treats a threat to your identity as a threat to your life. And it's actually quite a hard thing to do to change. And so, yeah, you have to break this loop by choosing a new lens. And so, yeah, in my example with games and trying to get better at studying, I often told myself that I was a person who was bad at concentrating and got distracted by games easily. and I might have just said that I was bad at studying, but really, it was only because whenever someone asked me to play games, I would just accept and waste a lot of time, and I would sort of distract myself and not really look at what was in front of me, which was my work. And yeah, what that sort of did was just create a like perpetual loop which kept on repeating, in which I began to keep thinking that I was just someone who's not good at concentrating and easily got distracted, and then yeah, it just drove myself deeper and deeper into that pit. And so yeah, what I had to do was change my perspective and really look at it and change my actual character, to sort of try and improve. The next thing that Dan Koe talks about is the levels of the mind, and Dan Koe sort of shows a vertical ladder which has 9 levels, and in this he sort of maps out how the human consciousness evolves, and he talks about how most people are stuck on the first 3 levels. And so basically I'll give you a run through on each of them. And so the first one is the first level out of the 9 is where it's called impulsive, and it's basically where you act on raw instinct. And obviously I guess maybe it's of like a child, because they don't really have a thought process before actually doing an action. So maybe if they saw some mud on the ground, they might want to try it out, even though they don't really think behind it. It doesn't really have a thought, it just comes on impulse. The next one is the self-protective level, and basically focus purely on your personal safety or needs. The next one is the conformist, which basically you do what society or the people around you expect you to. And to change your life, you must move into the next level, which is to be self-aware. And you have to recognize that you are not your own thoughts. Then is to be responsible and to take ownership of your principles. The next level is the individualistic level, where you have to recognize that the truth is relative to context. Then is the autonomous level, where you have to integrate contradictions and be flexible. And then the final few are the transcendent and the constructually aware, where you have to see yourself as a useful illusion, or you can operate your purpose beyond your own belief. And those are like the sort of highest levels that you can achieve. However, obviously it's quite hard, and you have to sort of work your way up to eventually understand yourself more, and it helps you achieve your goals and realize your true purpose and your true desires and what you really want. Next, Dan Koe talks about how you not only have to be, not only have to have the opportunity or the agency, but you also have to have intelligence, and that is one of the key ways that you can achieve whatever you want. And so Dan Koe talks about how intelligence isn't really your IQ, but it's your ability to steer towards a goal. And so people with low, intelligence, he says, quit when the first plan fails, while high intelligence people work around it and try and figure out another way to approach the task. And so if you want to be someone who's successful and achieves their goals, you can't just give up immediately. You have to sort of work your way around the obstacles and ignore the safe path that others have set for you. And next, Dan Koe talks about the 1-day reset protocol. And so this is for if you really want to change your life and if you want to turn it around and achieve whatever you want. And so basically, Dan Koe talks about sort of, splitting the day for the morning, the day, and the evening. And so basically in the morning, you have to write your anti-vision, and that is basically the worst version of your life in 5 years. Then your vision, which is which is whatever you want to do. And so for example, for me, maybe because I'm still studying right now, the nightmare version of my life might be to, because I'm not studying, I might end up playing a lot of games and getting distracted, and therefore I won't get into a good school and my parents won't be happy with me. and that's quite a bad thing, I guess, to happen to you. And so that's something that I would want to avoid. And then the vision would be to sort of do well, maybe do well in my studies, do well outside of studies as well, and sort of make the people around me happy. And that would be something that you might put as something you strive to do and as your vision. And then throughout the day, you can set reminders to ask yourself, what am I avoiding right now? And am I choosing safety, or am I choosing, or am I taking risks and following what I plan to do? And so whenever you come across a choice where that you need to make, you need to remind yourself of those things that you made in the morning, where you wrote down what you wanted to avoid and what you wanted to become, and then that will sort of help you make the choice that corresponds to whatever. That'll help you make the choice that corresponds to whatever goal you have. And then yeah, if you do that, you have to sort of set a, I guess, project, and set a 1-year lens, then a 1-month project, and then 3 daily actions that the future you would do without thinking. And so those sort of steps sort of allow you to build up, and eventually it can turn into a habit where you always do the things that correspond to whatever your goal is, and then that will help you grow into your goal and do whatever you want to achieve. And then finally, the next thing that Dan Koe talks about is sort of how to turn your life into sort of a game where you can enjoy and where you can sort of achieve, I guess, your real potential. Because a lot of us, including me, we don't really see life as a game, and we sort of we get distracted, or we might get off track. However, if you plan it out and have it step by step as a video game, and as a sort of and you treat everything as a stepping stone to get better and get stronger, then that way it will be a lot easier for you to achieve your final goal. And so you can sort of envision your whole life as something to help you achieve your goal. And so the win condition can be whatever your goal is. The losing can be what you don't want to happen. And Dan Koe says that you can visualize boss fights as your monthly projects, your quests as your daily levers. And games are actually addictive because they have clear goals and constant feedback. And so if you visualize your life right now and your goals that you want to achieve as a game, then it can be a really, I guess, good way to get addicted to following whatever you want to do, and then therefore achieving it. And then when you structure your life in this way, discipline becomes irrelevant, because the game is just, I guess, too fun to stop playing, and you'll eventually manage to achieve whatever you want. So thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something from this video.